I think it's absolutely relevant, this title, right? More time, more revenue, and of course, more you. How often do we hear this with business owners? And it's, I feel like I do this every day, especially when you've got business owners are going, I don't have time to spend with my family. Well, there might be a reason why. So hopefully, some of these points that we'll go through today might be able to give you more time, more revenue, and more you. So I would firstly, I'd like to welcome our attendees, and for those who will be listening later, because I know it's in the middle of the day, and some of you, I know quite a lot of people listen to our recordings in the evenings, not during the work hours, to try and get their job done. So welcome. I would like to welcome Mike Christensen and Colin Stein from Stellar Consulting, and of course I'm Trudi from Numeric Eight. Before we start, I thought it would be nice for Colin and Mike to just tell them a little bit more about themselves. Firstly, I will introduce Mike. Mike, a senior consultant at Stellar Consulting and has been since 2017. Mike, would you like to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, Trudy, and just off the bat, thank you for having us. It's lovely to be here, and we really appreciate what you do. So it's exciting to be on a conversation together. So as you said, I've been with Stellar since 2017. Stellar are a boutique business consulting firm. So we specialise in the SME space, the small to medium enterprise space. And what we're all about really is helping business owners improve their business assets. So whether that's to scale and grow, or whether that's to optimize for sale, or whether that's to functionally succeed out of the business, they're all things that we're trying to do to help those business owners maximize the value of their asset. The reason why I was joined Stellar was I was really attracted to the IP. So it's simple and it's really transferable. And then that leads into how we deliver as well. So we're delivering in a coaching consulting hybrid. So what we're doing is we're transferring our skills into the business and we're teaching a person to fish. So we're really giving them a leg up, and I really enjoy that bit of it. Before that, I had a 25-year corporate executive career within financial services and commercial real estate. The biggest chunk of that was a 12 to 13-year stint at a company called Dexus. It was a tiny little subsidiary within Deutsche Bank when I joined, and we effectively bought that off Deutsche, listed it on the exchange, went international, did some product extension, and today it's a top 50 ASX. So I really love working with a business and helping it mature and seeing the fruits of business growth.
Thank you, Mike. And wow, Dexis is just amazing growth, hasn't it? It's just incredible.
Yeah.
And Colin, senior consultant at Stellar Consulting as well. We work on a number of mutual clients together, and I've seen Colin in action. Does an amazing job helping people in business. So, Colin, over to you for a minute.
Hi, Trudi, and again, also thanks for having us here. It's a privilege and an honor to be with you today. A bit about my background, as you asked. Originally qualified as a chartered accountant, but went into the commercial world, and three of us started off a retail furniture business in the days when I lived in South Africa. And we started off with one store and started growing that slowly. And then we did quite a significant acquisition, and funding that we listed on the stock exchange. And we carried on growing and did more acquisitions, and we became the biggest furniture retailers in Southern Africa. And then I came to Australia, proud Australian, and bought a business and ran that for a number of years, and then retired. And for the last 12 years, I've been in business coaching with various organizations. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been with Stellar Consulting. And I must say, the model that Stellar has with the hybrid, coaching and the consulting side and the intellectual property that we work with is a world beater. And I take that without fear of criticism. It's just fantastic. And the joy, as similar to obviously what Mike said, is the joy is helping our clients in whatever way we can, using our IP. And we do some one-to-one coaching as well. And I do it because I actually just love helping people. I enjoy business and I enjoy helping people. So that's me.
You certainly do, Colin, and I see this interaction because we work together. So it's been amazing. And Stellar Consulting, some of this IP I was privy to, I'm going to say probably about 15 years ago now. And some of this stuff, this IP that you're about to share, I still put it into practice, and I actually practice it myself. So all these years on, fundamentally, I'm going to say it's proven, like, because 15 years on, it's really silly. I'm still using it. It's crazy. But thank you, Mike and Colin, for joining us today. So, and for those that don't know me, I'm the director of Numeric Eight Bookkeeping. I started this business more than 15 years ago now. I don't know where those years have just flown by. And I started this business because I just wanted to help business. My background is business, and fundamentally I see that the numbers tell a story. So if I can share those numbers, and real numbers, because you find a lot of business owners, their head in the sand, they're not interested in knowing. But once they're educated and once they're showing those numbers, they just blossom from there. So, and then it helps with their business growth, of course. I have in excess of 30 team members. I think we're about to 35. There's a newbie that's just started yesterday, very excited. And we support the finance function in organisations. Okay, let's get started. More time, more revenue, and more you. And how can you do this in business? I think there's 3 areas in business where you can support this and do this and action it. And I'm going to say the capability within organisations, the business behaviour, and functional structure. And let me just say functional structure is my favourite. So I'm going to talk about that, but I'm going to hand it over to firstly Mike to talk about capability. And when we're talking about capability in business, we're looking at the back office, the operations, the strategy, and the culture. So, Mike, do you want to just share some of this IP with the audience, and then we'll have a little shared conversation around it?
Absolutely. And going back to what you said before, Trudi, you're right. Our origins are from the late 90s. And we have clients today that we originally coached back then that we've gone back into for various reasons. And as you just said, they still use the same language, the same terminology. So it's really, I think that goes to the simplicity of it. So this is a good example. I think with capability, probably the easiest way to think about it is like the housing analogy. So if we were to build a house, we would understand the design aspects of that house, the blueprint, and then we would engage specialist skills to execute on the construction of that house, right? And then not only is it the skill set, it's the tools that the various people turn up on site to employ. So if you think about plumbers, electricians, carpenters, all turning up at site to do construction, they're going to turn up with the right tool set. They're not going to turn up without a tool belt, right? And then work it out and go, I better go down to Bunnings and grab something, or I don't have nails or whatever. Same with business. And if you think about the skill sets that we have within business, as you just mentioned, they're across a multifaceted component of the business. So they're in what we call the support functions, which includes the finance function, it includes the IT function, those sorts of things, HR support, what we call the factory, which is how we generate our customers and then deliver our product and service. Also across our strategy, which is our vision and purpose pieces and our future earning strategies around product extension and channels to market, and then across culture as well. So it's important that we have a way of assessing that capability within businesses and kind of doing like a current state in terms of where the business is at, and then referring it to a future state in terms of where we want to get to. A bit like, with the housing analogy, going back to that, we don't always have the plumbers working on site. They might come at the appropriate time in terms of the construction plan, right? The other thing to note about the capability statement, you can see a kind of a simple version that's sitting on your screen there. It's got a horizontal reference and a vertical reference. And that's when we come to measure capability, we talk about it in 2 dimensions. So you've got the number of skills that you've got. So the number of skills, number of plumbers, number of electricians, etc. And then you've got the skill level that sits underneath that, and that's the depth piece. So again, if you're talking about an apprentice carpenter turning up with a set of nails, or you're talking about a fully fledged carpenter with a electronic nail gun to get the job done. And of course, depending on what you're talking about, what skill it is and what level of depth, sort of drives the speed to which you go, and it helps you set yourself up for the next phase of business. Does that make sense?
I love the analogy of the house, and it's true at any time when you're in the process from start to finish of building a house. You'll have various trades come in at various times. So that analogy is spot on, and I can picture that.
And of course, we don't have all the tools and all the skills. We've got a broad knowledge of that, like a builder has a broad knowledge. And when we need to get deep on something and the business needs some deep skill sets, that's where we rely on our business partners, such as yourself. So we're not versed in bookkeeping, but we know a fantastic bookkeeper. We know that can do the job, and we can employ them on site and we can get that done. So it's really, really important. Our ecosystem is an important part of what we do, as it is for a builder, knowing that they've got the right tradespeople that they can line up to do the right level of job.
So how would you, when you get introduced to a business that needs to build their house, there's lots of words on this page. Where do you start? Where would you you've got the back office operations, strategy and culture. Is there a methodology where you pick one of those colors that you would start with first? Or is it unique to the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would do some sort of fact find and discovery and understand where the business is at first. So on that blueprint, on that construction, are they at framing stage? Are they at slab stage? Where are they sitting? And where do they want to go? Do they want to build a 2-story mansion? Do they want to build a single block of units? And then when we've got that roadmap, which we'll talk about, I think, a little bit later in the webinar when we talk about business behaviours model, we reference that to the skill set and capability. So if we look at, we don't want to get too bogged down in detail, but within back office, there's an efficiency skill set there. So that's all about having the right people in the right roles doing the right thing, and that creates responsibility and accountability so people don't pass the buck. When you couple that with something like culture, which is ensuring that people are behaving and showing up in the right ways, that's a really powerful foundational concept. So if you want to, build on that slab and grow to the second story, having some of those foundational pieces in place is really, really important.
And I'd imagine that if you've got a number of stakeholders in a business, trying to get a buy-in from them could be somewhat tricky. How do you overcome trying to get all stakeholders on the same page?
Yeah, so I suppose when we do that discovery piece, we play that back to business owners and say, this is what we're hearing. So we get, a sample from the whole of the business. So it could be from the receptionist right the way through to the owners, and gauge their temperature read on what challenges they've got in growing the business. And we play that back, and 99 times out of 100, we get business owners going, yeah, you've picked the eyes where we're sitting at the moment, and you've also captured sort of where we want to go. So when we get sign off on that, we know that we've got agreement and we've got alignment. And that sometimes that can be over multiple stakeholders. So if it's a multiple ownership structure, or if it's a board structure and we've got senior executives, there's a multi-layered structure there. But at the end of the day, it's about everybody agreeing before we move forward. Because as we know, when we affect change in business, if we don't go through a change process, which is everyone's had their say, everyone's had their buy-in, are we all in agreement? Let's move forward.
Yeah. And I actually think that when you're dealing with so many personalities, that's probably one of the biggest areas of challenge is that trying to get a buy-in from all the stakeholders initially. So
the other thing we do, Trudi, is we reference the activities that we're doing to business value optimization. So we've got a method which we won't talk about today, but it actually creates value inside a business. And so in the same way as if you're creating a house, is 3 bathrooms necessary in the suburb that you're creating that house for, or is 2, you know?
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Can I maybe just add something there, if I may? Often we find we're the third coaching entity to come into a business. So in other words, they would have tried 2 other organizations or people. And so talking about the buy-in is it just hasn't worked. And I think part of my background have been in coaching for the 10 and a half, 12 years that I've been doing it, is we deal with the whole company as well. I know you spoke about the buy-in, but the actual implementation is we're dealing with the whole organization. That makes such a big difference, because if you're doing coaching in just to CEOs, what you're relying on then is the CEO going back to the office and imparting that what he's learned with the rest of the staff. Whereas we are actually dealing with a whole layer of the enterprise or the organization where everybody's involved. And that, I think, is for us a big thing, because everybody is buying into what we're doing. It's not just the CEO standing up the front saying, "We will do this because I say so." That leadership doesn't work.
Yeah, plus you've got everyone in the business using the same language. So commonality of language and repetition of language is really important if you want to row the boat in the same direction.
Yeah. And I think what's quite interesting, I think capability, this structure here, for me also having, being part of a family business that's been going for 80 years and I'm the 3rd generation, wow, a lot of this, putting it into play when you're dealing with family businesses and they're trying to get a buy-in from them is probably the hardest challenges you'll have in business, because and especially when you're coming from a 3rd generation, the sense of entitlement that comes with that, with some of them, the difference between a shareholder versus an employee within the business, and trying to understand what you're building here is a house together. You're not building townhouses.
Because business owners can be rightly quite sensitive about their asset. We're sort of saying, look, we're going to be very careful with your baby. You might have a but ugly baby at the moment, but we're great at cosmetics, or we're great at optimizing, what you've got.
Yeah. So, but yes, it's we could almost write a book on it, couldn't we? Really, with all the. But it's every. I think that yes, from what you're explaining today of building this house, but there's so much emotion around it, and I think we'll go on to this in a minute, but the emotion around it is the behaviors that happen in business. So can I ask Colin the next area of business behavior, because this dealing with people as personalities, as my father said, in business, the only big variable in business is people, and you're dealing with behaviors here. So over to you, Colin, because this is amazing stuff and interesting stuff.
Yeah, the business behavior model, the BBM, is, as you say, is an interesting one, because if you look at the bottom of the picture there, what typically happens is you're in business, or you're working for somebody, and you decide, I can go and do this on my own, and I can make more money, and I really want to. I've got this entrepreneurial skill, and you might have a colleague who you might break away with, and you'll go off and you'll start your own business, and that's the butterflies and desperate situation. You're nervous about starting because you're taking this big risk and off you go and you start your business. And let's just assume you go on your own, and basically you're on your own. It's your money, your risk. You're working 7 days a week, 26 hours a day. You're just non-stop. You're doing everything yourself, and you're just really, really just putting everything into it. And then it gets to a point where you might bring somebody in just to assist you, and often is that you're just handing off what you hate doing. So that person just takes over what you hate doing, and they carry on with that. And then it gets to a point where you've passed the point of, when I say no return, in other words, you've got to a point where you're just going to continue with your business, as opposed to maybe go get a job again at possibly where you were or similar organization. And then you start growing, and you start just employing people around you, and all they're doing is just help you, and it's just a bit frenetic. And it gets a bit crazy. And that's often where the SMEs, so in other words, as Mike said earlier, we work with SMEs, but those have been around for at least a couple of years because they're in existence. They've passed that first hurdle of really just going. And then we get to the point of investing, where now you actually, you ran your business on the smell of an oil rag, and now you're having to find that I actually need to get a decent copier, and I need desks, and I need chairs, and I need whatever to run the business. And then, you carry on with this, and you start growing. And then that's where that's when we called in, because it's just chaos. There are no systems or limited systems. And that's where we come in and start assisting those businesses. And then they start growing more. We're going to talk about functionality in a while. And, that's where all that comes in, and what we bring to the party. And so you carry on growing, and then you get to the point where, again, it's just crazy, and you get what we call, you close your door. You don't want to interact with people. You're frustrated because you don't know what to do next. Everyone's relying on you because there's no real structure around you. And those are the steps that we talk through, and you can see it goes through all the way through where you actually plateau, decline, or there's future growth. So there are various stages in this business behavior model, and we can assist in all those levels of coming in. We call it the first wall and the second wall, etc. And we use our IP, and that's how we assist people. Also, obviously, having our own personal experiences that we bring to the table.
Thank you, Colin. What's quite interesting is because we look after, in the finance function and bookkeeping function, we look after clients from startup all the way through to their cycle of their business journey. And how often is it that you see them in that frantic phase of I call them Jack of all trade, because that's what they are, right? And I find that most business owners, they've created a business because they're passionate about what they're doing. It might be a service or a product, and they're really good at what they do, and then trying to build that out and find the right people around them to build that. They get into this anxious process of, what am I doing? Can I afford to do that? And the planning around that, they can't see past a month sometimes. And so I'd imagine that, you guys being able to plan that out for them and make it clear, that roadmap, it's literally a roadmap, right, Colin? And working through all of those areas, it brings a sense of calmness to what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, just to add to that, it's not uncommon for us to have business owners chat to us initially, and they've already had what I call the car crash. So they've been in business and they haven't had a roadmap, and they're very entrepreneurial. So they've got a lot of energy in the business. As you say, it's quite frenetic. But because they haven't had that roadmap, they've had a bit of a false start. They've had a bit of a crash. and that's impacted on their confidence, and it's given them a bit of fear and a bit of risk aversion. And sometimes it's just about, a bit of hand holding and a bit of support, by providing that roadmap and saying, hey, we've all been there before. We've all had those crashes. Let's provide something that takes the blinkers off and gives you a bit of a reference point for the decisions that we're going to make. Sorry, Colin.
No, that's fine. To touch on also what Mike said earlier is that recently, well, probably about 8-9 months ago already, working with a client, and they were just in that frenetic mode. They weren't getting proper accounting. Just one aspect of their business I'm talking about here is they weren't getting, the CEO was not, and the owner were not getting proper financial reports from their financial man. They were not getting accurate cash flows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what had happened is this growth situation where you appoint people into a position because they happen to be there, but you're not really looking at the real skill sets around them. And that's where I introduced Trudi into this manufacturing organization. And she's taken over the entire accounting function. And that's where we assist our clients through this growth process, which ties in with what Mike said, capacity. We talk about here the business behavior, and where we're going to move to is the functionality. And the client is as happy as anything because they're getting proper accounts at once. They're managing the cash flows. They're not getting the phone calls from all their customers waiting for payment or asking when they're going to get paid. They're sleeping better at night. It's just had a profound effect on them. So, we're talking about more time, more revenue, more yield. And that just dovetails into it completely is when we can just help our clients and use our ecosystem, which Mike referred to earlier. That's the solution. That is the solution. But, what's important to understand is it's like saying, well, I want to run. And, you go out there the very first day and you run, well, if you can, you run 10 kilometers if you can without falling over before that. But you don't run 10 kilometers the first day. You start stretching, you start warming up, you start steady. And that's what it's building blocks. It's like Mike said, it's like building a house. You're putting this thing together slowly to get to this final beautiful product where you can take a step back and say, I'm really running my business now. And I've got the helicopter view. And so I'm in my business, or should I say, I used to be in my business. I should rather say I'm now on my business. And you can have a totally different perspective on where you are, where you're at.
I think it comes down to the controls of the business, the fact that you're talking about this manufacturing client, and now the CEO is he feels like he's got control of what's going on because he knows what levers to pull, whether it be sales in operations or, because we're able to feed him the numbers, he knows what's going on with the business. So him now having control, he feels like he's able to make some really good decisions on the growth of the business. So there's been a real change, but I think it's not just him. I think it's been across the board in everyone's behaviours in the business. Even coming down to the production floor, where the team are being collaborative about their approach about production now, because they were working, in little teams like 2-3 man teams, and now the whole business is working together because they know what they need to achieve each month. And so, the behaviors of the business itself is shifted, which is, for us, it's so pleasing to see, but it's been a transformation, I'm going to say, over the last while. So it's been great. So thank you, Colin, for that. And of course, now my favorite subject, and it's the functionality within business. Now, can I just share that, of course, this is Stella's IP, but this is the area that I've known for all these years, and this is where I practice it, so much so And I don't know if these guys know this, but even in my diary, I have blocks of time. And guess what? Those blocks of time are in these colors. So I know exactly where my time is spent. So I have to say, I do practice what I preach. And why this is one of my favorites is because we'll go into detail, and probably Mike and Colin will share a bit more because it's their IP. But I'm just from my perspective, I'll share what I do and see with clients is that the typical, and actually funny enough, this morning I was having a conversation with a business owner that has now 10 staff. And he said, I need to hand over the finance function. I've always been doing it. And I said to him, what are the areas of the business you're working on? And he goes, oh, everything. I'm like, okay, this is exactly, we started talking about what are the areas that you like to do in the business? What are the areas that motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work? Because a business owner, if they're being Jack, the Jack of all trade, there is areas of the business you're not good at, you don't want to be doing, and it's not going to motivate you. And it's all otherwise it's making you be complacent about the business. So when I have someone come in and go, well, yes, I do everything, I actually make them say, well, tell me what you want to be doing. Like, what are the areas that excite you? Because that is business, right? So and I tend to, I don't go into great depth of this because this is not what I do, but because I understand it, because I know, like, I've been doing this, for the last 15 years, I go, well, you know what? Why are you trying to do the accounting and finance when I know it's red, when it's your cost center? Most business owners, in my view, are working on the business because sales is the top part of the business, right? You need to drive, you need to be feeding the team, you need to be working with the vision of the business and translating that to your team. So I'm like, so why are you doing accounting and finance? And they go, yeah, good question. Anyway, I'm going to hand this back over to Mike and Colin because this is of course, their IP, and they can probably give us some cases where they can see very clear that people shouldn't be jack of all trade in business. So, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great points, Trudi. So, the owner's interest, but also the value that the owner brings to the table. So if an owner brings a high value add in business development or sales or those sorts of things, but then they're doing back office support functions, then, you've got an inefficiency in terms of pound for flesh sort of thing. So we kind of say, when we do this exercise, it's literally like sort of stripping an engine apart and putting it back together so that we've got the right people doing the right things in the right roles. And ultimately, as an owner, sometimes what we'll see with businesses is we'll help them set up their advisory board, and the owner migrates, as Colin was saying, from being in the business to being on the business. And then the way they feel comfortable from a control perspective is that you've got business metrics being calculated. So we'd like to say that the business actually looks at things from a dashboard point of view. So eking out all those areas where people are sticking fingers into areas where they shouldn't be, in the nicest possible way. I'm sure a lot of it is unintentional. Sometimes people's roles just grow. You've been in that environment where someone says, "Oh, can you just do this?" And that forms a habit, and you hang on to those tasks, particularly when the business is smaller and it starts growing. And you might go, "I'll dabble in the marketing piece." And then you get big enough where you actually need some proper marketing skills, and you have to let go of that. And that can be hard for people. There's a whole habit around that. So that's part of operating this methodology, is to help people deconstruct the business, to put it back in a way where we've got optimization around what people actually do.
And I think also understanding people's strengths and weaknesses. So I'll use myself as an example. You know, a team with the size that I have, I know my weakness is in HR. I'm not someone to sit there and do a performance review on someone's performance. You know, as my HR manager said, we'd be in massive big trouble because, you know, you just say it how it is sometimes. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but that's what it is. And because I know that's what it's not my forte. One of the first recruits I had within the business when I got to a size was to bring in a HR manager. You know, you've got all the Fair Work legislation now. There is so much, and you can't cut and paste an employee contract. So, you know, so understanding yourself, where your weaknesses lie, and you bring those people in. It's a little bit like absolutely in sales and marketing. You know, I have a team for that. There's no way I know what goes on. I know what I'm good at, so let other people use their strengths to develop and work together. So, yeah.
And as the business grows, it's almost like you're doing a functional cut, an extended or a bigger functional cut as the business grows. So therefore, you know, let's use finance as an example. You might just have a bookkeeping function, and then eventually you get a financial controller, and then eventually you get a CFO. But you do that when the business capability requires it, as opposed to just going, oh, gut feeling wise, I need a CFO.
And so can I just share with the audience that when I did this functionality chart myself around about 15 years ago, having the colours made it visual for the team to understand the areas of the business. And it's really quite an easy buy-in because they then realise, well, I shouldn't be doing that because actually that falls in the red zone versus the blue zone. So why would I do that? So, and you know, I have to always emphasize the people in the business where their strength is, they own it. They sometimes don't actually do it, but they're delegating it, but they own it. And I think there's trying to explain that to people as well is sometimes difficult because there's some people that they go, oh, well, I'm responsible for that. I actually also have to do that. Sometimes people just don't understand that. So do you want to just expand on that, Mike, where, you know, owning a function in a color, maybe in the blue, where you don't necessarily have to do it, but just delegate it?
Yeah, so that's why within this structure we've got this idea of, you know, a lead and a support, and what that helps with as well is key person risk. So it makes you focus on cross-skilling. So, you know, have we just got one person that knows all this intellectual knowledge, and if they leave the business we're stuffed, or have we got someone that can cover, and have we got someone at a level that you know, understands the function, but as you say, then there's people underneath it that can do the execution piece. So that's all gets documented through this methodology. The other cool thing about this methodology is it forces you to focus on efficiency. So not only doing right things, right roles, but when things don't go right and logging those, and we call those gaps inside businesses. And it is amazing what you flush out when you just do a first cut of this. And you're going, okay, well, we've got a reception function, but actually we've also got a secretarial function, and they're both doing the same role sometimes, and there's duplication. Okay, well, we need to fix that. Or there's, you know, a system optimization issue whereby, you know, computers are breaking down. We need to fix that. So there's this whole flushing out of from grassroots upwards, you know, where things are going wrong, and a real cleansing around that, a real healthy attitude of continuous improvement, not oh, you know, we're terrible. It's things are wrong. Let's get it fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's quite interesting is all these areas of capability within a business, the behavioural studies and the functional, how aligned they are with all with the business. Like all go hand in hand. So when you're talking about functionality, you're also talking about behaviors, because and behaviors because of personalities and people doing what they love and what they don't love. So to me, I find it quite intriguing. But it's real, and I see it all the time. So is there any other last comments you would like to share, Colin?
Well, just to take your point, you said you hate HR, but what we actually, once we work through the functionality chart, we actually encourage our clients to actually redo employment, job descriptions for their staff, and to color code it, as in these colors. And then you work out just what percentage of their time is actually spent in all these colors. So now if you're going to just, see the CEO with a lot of red, you're going to turn around and say, you should be in the yellow and the blue.
Yeah.
And this is what this sorts out, going through this functionality. Because remember, they're almost like pages behind this that you're seeing on the screen. They bring this forward, and you get to like stationery. Who's ordering the stationery? Oh, the CEO. Who makes sure there's paper for the photocopier? Yeah. What happens if it jams? Who do you call? The CEO. Well, hold on a second. He can be employed in a much more efficient and costly way, and not doing those functions. But it happens, and people get so used to doing these things that it's just taken for granted until it's highlighted. Why are you doing that? Oh, well, I've always done it.
Yeah. And
and the word's been thrown out a few times. It all gets back to efficiencies.
So could I just say quickly, what Colin highlighted was really important. So this really brings job descriptions alive. Too often, job descriptions are something part of the recruitment process, and they're stuck in the back drawer, and there's no fluidity or dynamicy with those job descriptions. But a job description should be something that reflects what the business needs, and you're tapping into that. So it's a greater connection to purpose and vision and mission inside a business than just something that is, a tick the box for the sake of recruitment.
And how often it happens where we receive, we're asking for the employee contracts and it says attachment JD and there's no JD. It happens all the time, and just evolution of a business that people just go, oh no, the receptionist can do this, that, and the other, and the owner of the business can do this, and then as the business grows, it just grows frustrations, communication, frustration, all of that just ends up almost imploding. So having functionality is, and that's why I probably love it, because it creates some disciplines in the business. So. Absolutely. Yeah. We're almost at the end of our webinar here. So to our audience, I trust you found today's session insightful and thought-provoking. I'm sure you may well have questions and some points of clarification you'd like to discuss further. I'm sure, because you could talk about this forever. Assuming you do, would be delighted to field them through after today's webinar. So please reach out to Colin, Mike, myself, through our email address, as you can see on the screen, or our mobile phones. So thank you, Mike and Colin, for joining me today, and thanks to all of you for tuning in to hear and how you might unearth more time, more revenue, and most of all, of course, more you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Trudi. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, all of you who've been online or who've been listening.